Welcome to Hunt Showdown patch 2.1. I'm ASCool and I'm going to be going over the release notes for this patch, independent of anything associated with the event. So I'll be going over things like the new weapons and the tweaks to the spear, but I won't be covering event skins or the event traits. Let's go ahead and jump in. The trait formerly known as Poison Sense has been changed to Pain Sense. Now, instead of just seeing poisoned hunters through walls, you're going to see them when they have any status effect. That is, bleeding, poisoned, or burning. Personally, I'd kind of like to see if they added coughing to the list, like when you get hit by a choke bomb. That way it would just be a universal if you're affected by a status effect, this reveals you. Regardless, I think it's a good change because Poison Sense didn't really get much use and it was a little bit too specific of a use case. I still don't expect this to get a lot of use, but it at least broadens its applications. On note with that, it went from 1 trait point up to 3. The Lightfoot trait got a new solo perk. Solos now, when they have Lightfoot, received reduced noise while crouch walking. Bomb Launcher joins the arsenal. This is like the Bomb Lance without the blade on the end. It's now the first weapon in the Bomb Lance unlock tree, and it comes with the ammo types: Dragon's Breath, the Harpoon, the Steel Ball ammo, and the Waxed Frag charge. The Harpoon ammo type is basically like a crossbow bolt. It'll stick in enemy hunters and make them bleed. I think a couple things that this adds as an option is, first of all, we didn't currently have a 2-slot crossbow. This essentially functions as that. In addition, we also have what's essentially the option for a 2-slot silenced shotgun with the Steel Ball ammo. The Waxed Frag charge is also an interesting addition in the 2-slot options. While this does add some new options to the arsenal in the 2-slot variety, I'm not sure what it gives us that isn't already covered by the crossbows or the shotguns, besides the Steel Ball ammo. Regardless, this is the first item in the Bomb Lance tier, so if you want to unlock the Bomb Lance, you're going to have to give this at least a try. The Maynard Sniper comes in at $139 Hunt dollars, which is just $11 less than the Spark Sniper at $150 Hunt dollars. The difference they highlighted the two when they released it is that the Maynard Sniper is the only gun that has a sniper in its based form. But let's look at the stats and see if there's a reason to actually take it over the Sparks. Alright, so with the Sparks on the left and the Maynard on the right, looking at the numbers, there really isn't that much of a difference. The Maynard does 5 less damage at 144. Its drop range is about 15 meters longer. Its spread actually comes in at a surprising 25, making it a semi-reliable hipfire option, unlike the Sparks, which has a spread of 55. And the muzzle velocities are virtually identical. But here's the thing I think we need to throw in. The available ammo types for the Maynard are High Velocity and Dum Dum, both of which synergize well with the Maynard's other stats. What do I mean by that? Well, with High Velocity, the muzzle velocity comes up to 660 meters per second, which that's a full 130 meters per second faster than the Sparks. So not only does this have a further drop range, it also has a faster projectile, making it a prime choice if you're good at tapping the heads. Then the other ammo type, the Dum Dum, this is going to see a penalty to muzzle velocity and drop range, but it's also going to be applying bleed to your target. And if you remember, the Maynard's damage is 140, so that means if you hit them within 30 meters, within the first 2 ticks of bleed, they will be dying. And given its great spread and the fact that you can have 2 different ammo types, you can have the Maynard set up to have great options both at long and short ranges. While it definitely competes with the Sparks Sniper for being a one-shot sniper, I think they did a good job differentiating it with its various ammo types. The Auto 4 Shorty definitely ruffled some feathers when it was announced, but let's look at the stats real quick. Obviously, having a 2-slot Crown and King, auto shotgun is a really intimidating proposition. I think the 2 things you have to keep in mind is not only does it only have 4 shots, it is also going to have the shortest one-shot kill range of any shotgun. If you look at that damage, which represents its damage to the chest at 10 meters, it's 154. Let's see how that compares to some other shotguns real quick. The rival Shorty is very similar with 158, but once again, this is at least a 2-shot rapid-firing shotgun. The Spectre Shorty gets a noticeable boost at 128, meaning that one-shot range is going to be further out for the Spectre than the Crown and King Auto. Same story with the Terminus Shorty. But if we look at the Romero Shorty, that damage is 214. So with all the 2-slot shotguns, they're going to vary in their one-hit kill range. But yes, the Auto 5 Shorty is an intimidating weapon, but you will notice that it's going to fail to secure one-hit kills as often as the other Shorty shotguns. But the fact it's going to get a rapid fire 4 shots is the big problem. I think a key part of going up against this one is making sure you stay out of that 10-meter window as much as possible. The Centennial pointman is probably my favorite gun of this release. Giving us a marksman scope on a 2-slot item is really going to shake up the options available for 2-slot players. Now there's an option to have a shotgun primary with a mid-range scope as your secondary, or even players who don't have quartermaster can now take a mid-range scope along with a shotgun, and that provides us a brand new combination we haven't had access to before. I don't think this is a game-changing arrangement by any means, but it's definitely a combination we haven't had before. And as someone who really likes the sniper shotgun combo, when I'm not taking quartermaster, I'm definitely going to be considering this one. And like the full-size Centennial, it has access to dum-dum, F&J, high velocity, and poison ammo. Probably the biggest thing to keep in mind about it is that it does have a relatively low muzzle velocity. So high velocity, bringing it up to 490 wouldn't be a bad call. The rival line is getting a mace edition with the Rival 78 mace. This is a 2-slot rival variation. I personally love the Obrez mace, and I'd love to see more mace options in the arsenal, so this is a really welcome change on my end. Let alone, I already like taking the Rival Shorty as a backup to my Lobel marksman. So having a mace on it as an oh shit option is a great perk. The Dark Dynamite Satchel is a new consumable that's a remote detonated explosive. You can place it, and then, as long as you're within 50 meters of it, you can look at it in dark sight to set it off and make it explode. I already made a full video on this one about the different tricks you can do with it. Go check that out for more details. There have been 2 new ammo types added during this patch. We have the Bomb Lance Harpoon, which we mentioned briefly before. This essentially makes your bomb lance like a hand crossbow. The hand crossbow now has the Revive Bolt added to it. I really like this addition. Mainly because I don't think there are going to be a lot of situations where you can reliably use it. And in those situations where you use it, I feel like the fact that you're giving up an ammo type on a utility weapon is already a big cost. Are you really going to sacrifice poison bolts to maybe revive an ally? Especially because you need line of sight on your ally in order to use it. And so half the time you need to expose yourself to revive that ally. So it's going to be far from the convenience of the old Necromancer. But time and testing will tell. I'm looking forward to giving this one a shot just for the fun of it. I don't normally take the hand crossbow, so I have my reservations about how much I'll enjoy this one. Another solo buff for traits. Conduit, now that gets the additional function, investigating a clue gives the same map progression of investigating 2 clues. So that means if you're a solo and you have Conduit, you'll only ever have to find 2 clues before finding the lair location. I don't really like that it's solo only, but it does give the opportunity for someone to rush the boss, set up their traps, and ambush any incoming teams. We'll have to see what sort of impact it actually has in a game. This is one of those traits where it's hard to tell what its actual impact is, because anytime you get foiled by it, you won't have any tell that that's what the opponent used. But in general, I'm happy to see them experimenting with traits as long as they're willing to tweak them for better or worse down the road. Berserker is an event trait we've had a handful of times, and now it's being added to the regular trait lineup as a scarce trait. If you're not familiar with Berserker, all your melee attacks do double damage. This lets you bring some different arrangements of lowdowns and do some fun boss destruction, like destroying the Hellborn in a matter of like 3 seconds. I never took it much, but I know some of the guys I play with loved it. They're going to be happy when they find it in the wild. Personally, I really enjoy the fact that they're growing their library of scarce traits. They provide a great opportunity to do something unusual and a little overpowered. It's a great way to add variety and spice to the game without breaking it too much. And a heads up on Bulwark. Bomb Lance gets an indirect buff. Bulwark no longer protects from the explosion of the standard ammo on a bomb lance. Now for the important part, we have some UI updates. Let's check out what they've done. In the equipment screen, we now have what they call the paper doll available. This is where you can select and change the item you're picking from your loadout without having to navigate back out to the lobby. This is an absolute life changer, and it was a total nightmare that they lost this when they did the original UI update. Up on the navigation bar here, there's now a dedicated play button to bring you back to this screen. They made some updates to the available buttons and the shortcut keys to get to them. I can't say I knew those buttons well enough to be able to tell you what actually changed, but some of those options will have changed a little bit, so make sure you read your labels before you click on your button. A big quality of life change is that filter and sort options are now going to be saved in between games. For those of you who keep track of your KDA, you can now access it and see it from the lobby. You can now place charms on any number of weapons. It's no longer restricted to 1. I couldn't get on with friends in my preview, so I don't have a screenshot of this, but it'll now show the levels of your companion's hunters from the lobby screen. When you select a new hunter, that hunter is now automatically selected when you go back to the loadout screen. I think out of everything, that was my biggest frustration with the UI. Now, when you're on your hunter screen and you see all your available hunters, they're displayed in a grid view, so you can navigate through them easier than before. In addition, take note of these two buttons down here. You have a free hunters button and an all hunters button, and so you can quickly move to the recruit screen right from here. In the store, when you're looking at items, if you right click, you're going to see a show 3D item button. This brings you to an item viewer preview mode where you can inspect the weapon, or click F to shoot. You can also scroll out and hear the weapon at different ranges. So I'm looking forward to a cleaner, easier to navigate UI. They also added the option to toggle your contract. Right now we have random contract, and on the weekends we'll have bounty clash during this event. It's also a good time to mention that all bounties are now worth the same amount. They're worth 125 gold. Previously, the value of your bounty was based on whether it was the primary target, a wild target, and if it was a primary target, how much of the map was taken up by that bounty. So in other words, now there's more incentive to go after small bounties. I think they said overall, on average, this raises the value of a bounty. So enjoy. They added a new drop helper to scopes. They adjusted that thick black line at the bottom to help indicate when you're within something's drop range. When the height of a hunter matches the distance between that thick line and the center crosshairs perfectly, you are right at the edge of the drop range. This makes it easy to tell where you need to start adjusting for that drop range impact. So hopefully this reduces the time it takes to help you acquire the taste of a new sniper's drop range. Just remember, if they're taller than the intersection of the lines and the beginning of the thick black line on the bottom, then they're within your drop range and you don't need to accommodate for it. The spear nerf is here, completely invalidating the video I put out 2 weeks ago. Somewhat. I'll have to figure out some sort of an update at some point. But the new stats is that the light attack only does 70 damage, meaning the light attack isn't even going to kill with a headshot. Then the heavy attack drops down to 147 damage, meaning a chest attack isn't going to kill. So if you want to kill with a melee attack with the spear, you must do a strong attack to the head. This is a steep nerf. And I don't want to say it, but they may have gone too far with the nerf. We'll see what the jury of the public says. The other change to note is that the throw no longer kills to the legs. It will kill to the arms though. The only reliable way to kill hunters now is a throw to the arms, chest, or head. Now the throwing spear is actually a throwing spear. There's also a note that they reduced the amount of damage it does when you pull it from something, so this should reduce its effectiveness on bosses some. Other notes is that the light melee attack speed has been reduced even further, and the throw speed went from 60 meters per second down to 40 meters per second, which is significantly going to impact what it does when it drops. So even at medium ranges, you need to compensate a significant amount for the drop. On top of all that, you can no longer run when you're prepping the throw. You're now going to need Surefoot, the event trait, to do that. And if that trait isn't available, like when the event's over, running with any of the throwing tools won't be an option. Other things to keep in mind is that they've rebalanced equipped melee weapons, improving the damage and stamina consumption on all weapons other than the katana. They increased the stamina consumption on the katana. Then for the throwing knives, they increased the damage, throw rate, and throw accuracy for throwing knives. The throwing knives actually got a significant buff. Throwing axes remained the same, and the spear got nerfed to oblivion. I'm excited to remake that last video and see what those changes actually impact. Note on wild blueprints you find in the world, when you find one, rather than unlocking 3, that has been reduced down to unlocking 1 random locked version of a weapon. This was done with the rationale that since you no longer need to unlock every individual custom ammo, there are less things needing unlocks, so giving 3 for 1 object found in the world was a little bit too much. A cool change is the restoration effect now recharges any dark sight you may have spent. So if you have the bounty and manage to get a restoration effect, You'll get that charge back up to 5 or 10, depending if you're solo or not. And there's a small note that beetles are now available to find in Soul Survivor. I never play that mode, so it doesn't matter to me. Couple changes to Mammon's Gulch. The spawn points in Preston Oil have been changed somewhat, or to present some unfair early game fights that were happening. Some movement options in Preston Oil were improved. I haven't got a chance to explore those yet, so go find them yourselves. There were a handful of spots in Deadfall Timbers where players could get stuck. Those have been fixed. And then finally, probably the most notable item here is that the Hellborn can now appear north of Blackthorn Stockyard. That's all the way up here. Then, for what in my opinion is the least impactful item on the patch notes, is that the rarity colors for some items were changed. If you're concerned about the rarity of your skins, go read the patch notes to find specifics. But in a nutshell, those were all the changes to 2.1 that were unrelated from the event. If I can get around it, I will make an event explainer, but I'm not sure that'll happen. In the meantime, you can check this breakdown of the Dark Dynamite Satchel. And if you're wanting to get any skins for this spooky season, remember you can use Hunt Lab for a discount at the official Crytek store. I'm ASchool, and thank you very much for watching.